always at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. 49ers versus Jaguars, defensive key matchups. We're going to talk about what the 49ers need to do to slow down a Jaguars offense that's done enough to win. Against Carolina in week 1, they ran the ball all over the Panthers, over 200 yards rushing the football. Week 2 against the Bengals, it was 131. Now, last week against the Houston Texans, it came back down to earth, and the Jacksonville Jaguars only rushed for 84 yards. And a lot of that has to go into the way that DeMeco Ryans decided to play against the Trevor Lawrence-led, Travis Etienne-led run game. So it was a very interesting game to watch. I really enjoyed watching the Texans versus Jaguars. I watched some of the other two games as well to try to build a plan for how the 49ers are going to go about some of these key matchups. And every week we talk about key matchups and key things that go into whether the 49ers can win or not. And every week the 49ers find a way to win certain key matchups and get it done. It's been really fun to kind of predict and pick out those plans as we've been going through. It's not always 100%, but it definitely highlights certain position groups to watch and certain players to watch as you're building towards. And the 49ers know that they've got to slow down this Jaguars offense, because right now the 49ers offense hasn't really got clicking. You just look at the points production. Week 1, 17 against Seattle, and Seattle's a good defense. They're number 2 in EPA in the entire league. So I knew that game was going to, be one that held up, that's for sure. New Orleans, they got 26 points. It was their best offensive production. They needed all 26 in that game. But once again, last week, the Arizona Cardinals did a good job against the 49ers, keeping them out of the end zone, in the red zone, and really playing very tough defense, especially against the run. And the Jaguars defense is coming in, and they're going to be playing good defense as well. They've caused more turnovers than any other team in the league. They have 9 takeaways. Been a phenomenal defense so far, and they've been good against the run, only allowing 84 yards per game on them on the ground. So finding ways to score on Jacksonville is going to be difficult. That means the defense has to play really tough. They have to hold down the fort, and now they have to do it without Nick Bosa. So everything gets a little bit more complicated. Every player needs to step up a little bit differently. Now, we saw 3 quarters of what that looks like with the 49ers last week against Arizona, but now the 49ers have a full week to plan without Nick Bosa, and the Jaguars have a full week to plan without the 49ers having Nick Bosa, so they can adjust what they're going to do as well. So we're going to get in all the matchups in this episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating if you feel like I deserve it. And of course, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the title sponsor of 49ers Cutback. So let's get right into these key matchups. And one of the key factors to the 49ers' success against the Arizona Cardinals last week was Robert Saleh's willingness to stay in a too-high shell. And what exactly is a too-high shell? Well, that's where you have 2 high safeties. So teams will usually run a single high, which is 1 safety deep, or a 2 high shell, which is 2 high safeties. And out of that, you can run a combination of different things. But really what it does is it takes one of your defenders out of the box and usually signals to the offense, this is a down we can probably run against. And it didn't matter if the 49ers were in their base 4-3 or if they were a nickel, or even sometimes they went to dime and then went with a 3 safety like a big dime with Jair Brown on the field. It didn't matter. They stayed primarily in 2 high safety. Now, it wasn't the whole game. They did some things where they would go single high post snap, so there was some adjustments. But for the most part, they gave Arizona the opportunity to run the ball. Last week, when the Houston Texans played Jacksonville, they did something similar. Now, not as much as Robert Saleh. Right now, the 49ers lead the league, and this is according to the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Liam Cohen. I was listening to his presser. He had some good stuff that he was talking about with this 49ers defense. But he even mentioned 49ers right now run more 2 high quarter shell than any other team in the NFL. And it doesn't mean that they're going to run quarters every time but they're going to run a too high shell. And they've been effective stopping the run underneath. They've been willing to allow teams to get closer to 100 yards rushing and limit the big play potential down the field. And really, we didn't see Arizona have too many plays down the field. They had the one, right, that went to Marvin Harrison Jr. You had the breakdown in coverage from Upton Stout. You had another one he dropped. But other than that, everything was underneath. And everything was kind of in that, 5 to 12 yard range where you could rally and make tackles in front of the sticks. So what you're seeing is the 49ers have a certain way of running defense, but you can only run that defense if you are able to stop the run with a 7-man box. And so far, the 49ers have done pretty good with that. They were very, very physical against the Arizona Cardinals. They were very tough against the Arizona Cardinals inside. Guys were flashing. They were making plays. They weren't allowing the Arizona Cardinals to get the run game going. Now, there's really just one carry that kind of explodes the Arizona Cardinals, rushing totals, and that is the Trey Benson run off to the right side. And doing my breakdown over on Patreon, I saw the 49ers defensive line did not adjust enough to be in the proper position. So they were outmanned on that side. Then you get a missed tackle by Marquise Siegel. He doesn't miss a lot, but he missed this one. And then next thing you know, Trey Benson's got 29 yards. But that does not show or illustrate how good the 49ers defense played against the run. They barely allowed anything on the ground to some very good running backs. So they've been good, but this is going to be one of the key matchups, is that 49ers front seven, when they're staying in that too high safety look. That means Pinnock and Marquise Siegel staying deep, stopping the run of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars have Travis Etienne. They have Michelle Tootin. Both of these guys are good players. Tootin, of course, the rookie. We were very high on him. I liked him a lot. I thought that he would have been a great fit for the 49ers. Jacksonville gets him. He's been proving to be very physical. He's only about 5'9", but he packs a punch, over 200 pounds, real physical and fast. He's one of those guys that if he gets out, you might not catch him. He's a 4-3 guy. So they've got the ability. They've got the talent with the two running backs that they have. Like I said, explosive early. Slowly every week it's gotten a little bit tougher for this Jacksonville Jaguars team to run the ball, and the 49ers want to keep that going. But this is going to be one of the key elements, because if the 49ers can stay in their two high safety look, they are going to make the Jacksonville Jaguars, pick them down the field. They're going to have to complete passes, underneath, in tight windows over and over, and go on 10, 12, 14 play drives. And the 49ers are saying, hey, I don't think that a team can be consistent enough to do this. Can Trevor Lawrence, who's completing 55.8% of his passes this season, strategically pick the 49ers off down the field? I don't know. I thought against the Texans he had drives and moments where he looked good. He was throwing into tight windows, but he will make a mistake here or there. He has 4 interceptions on the season. That's what you're counting on. You're counting on all of a sudden you not getting a good play on first down in the run game, stopping you for less than 3. The next play, you get an incompletion from Trevor Lawrence, and then you've earned the right to rush the passer, and now you get after him. So this is one of those key factors to how the 49ers go about winning football games, is they're just going to make you earn everything. They don't give any yards. 3rd and 1, we're trying to stop you. We're not giving you a single inch. And I love this part of the game. And it's something that's really going to translate, if they can keep this going during the season, to a lot of wins and low score totals, because teams can't consistently string together 11 really good plays. There's going to be mistakes. That's what the 49ers are counting on. This is the Robert Saleh way. This was the D'Amico Ryans way. Now, D'Amico Ryans, I will say this, is a little bit more aggressive in stopping the run. He will bring safeties in the box a little bit more consistently than Robert Saleh, but it has worked for Robert Saleh so far. All you have to do is go back and you look at Saleh's defenses. In 2019, that was one of the most effective defenses the 49ers had. They gave up 112 yards per game on the ground. So he's willing to give up some on the ground. This year, they're giving up 103, right? But when they had D'Amico Ryans, they used to give up under 90 yards. D'Amico had more of a focus on stopping the run than Saleh. Saleh is willing to let you run the ball a little bit because he figures one of these 3rd downs, even if it's 3rd and medium, we're going to get a stop and we're going to get off the field. So the front 7 against the run game, and it gets a little bit more complicated for the Jacksonville Jaguars because they have 2 starting offensive linemen that are limited at practice. Now, I expect these guys to play, but what health are they going to be in? And that is left guard Ezra Cleveland and right guard Patrick McCarry. Both of those guys are dealing with injuries. Now, we're expecting them to work through it, right? 49ers offensive guards are dealing with injuries as well. Dominic Pooney, Connor Kobe. So this is kind of the norm in the NFL, but it's something to watch, especially if those injuries are going to limit mobility. If they limit mobility and you get to third down and all of a sudden Yetur Gross-Matos and Mikael Williams are rushing from the inside, or Bryce Huff, advantage 49ers when it comes to athleticism. Also, Jordan Elliott and Kalia Davis have been problems when it comes to their havoc ability, getting in the backfield, creating disturbances, and creating problems. So that's something to keep in mind as well with this front seven really getting after it and not allowing the run game of the Jacksonville Jaguars to get going. And I think that this is a way that the 49ers can be effective. And if they can stay in a two-eye shell, like I said, it's going to make it more difficult for Trevor Lawrence to go ahead and, continue to complete passes. And if you're doing that, it takes us to our next key matchup, and that's the 49ers pass rush versus the Jags offensive line. Last week, the Houston Texans, they have talent all over the place when it comes to edge defenders. And so they put pressure on the outside against the Jacksonville Jaguars. When they got to third down especially, they came in a big way, and they put a lot of pressure on Anton Harrison and Walker Little. And they were beating them with speed around the outside. They were using that speed to power combination, and they're just really good when you look at the Houston Texans. Now, the 49ers are going to have to figure out their pass rush and what they do without Nick Bosa. But I got good news for 49er fans. Just looking at last week's film against the Arizona Cardinals, even without Nick Bosa, they were still generating pressure. Whether that was Bryce Huff just winning around the edge when he was singled up, or Mikael Williams absolutely driving offensive tackles, offensive guards, whoever it was, straight into the quarterback, they were successful. But it wasn't just that. Jordan Elliott was having some good pass rushes as well that was making Kyler Murray get rid of the football. And remember, one of the things the 49ers really had to worry about last week, and part of the reason they couldn't just sell out in rushing the passer, was rush lane integrity to be able to deal with Kyler Murray. Now, this week, Trevor Lawrence, he has the ability to run. He proved it against the Houston Texans, and he's proved it in his career that he can go ahead and get loose and scamper. But you can kind of, pull the reins off these guys a little bit and allow them to get after Trevor, because he's not going to kill you the way Kyler Murray can. He's just not as fast. He's not as elusive. He's not as dynamic when it comes to using his legs. So 49ers got a little bit of freedom this week to rush the passer and not worry about pass rush lane integrity as much, which also means a lot more stunts again for Robert Saleh up front. He was very strategic in how he did it last week. He also would use 5- and 6-man pressures at times to kind of muddy up the middle of the field and not allow those easy areas for Kyler Murray to escape. So they put Kyler Murray on the move. Sometimes he won, but they did a pretty good job hemming him up for the most part. So 49ers are going to be doing that as well in this game. They're going to be simulating pressures, but they're really going to be able to get after it a little bit more with 4-man. So how do the Jacksonville Jaguars account for that? For the Arizona Cardinals, what they did in the second half is they started leaving in a tight end chip, having a running back chip, and giving 6 guys, against the 4 49ers defensive linemen, slowing up the pass rush and hoping their wide receivers are going to win. Unfortunately, that didn't consistently happen. 49ers did a pretty good job in the secondary. They continue to do well in the secondary. We're going to be talking about the secondary in just a minute, but this is the defensive line's job now, is to overcome the Nick Bosa injury. And Robert Saleh's got to find opportunities to get Bryce Huff one-on-one matchups. And one of the ways he could do that is simulate pressure. And how do you simulate pressure? Well, you bring up Fred Warner and D. Winters in the A-gaps. You show blitz from Upton Stout from the nickel position. You bring up a safety like Jason Pennick or Marquis Siegel to blitz from the outside. And you just make them think pre-snap that any one of those guys can come. Then, of course, post-snap, you can bail. A lot of times they bail right before the snap, especially safeties that have to get back over the top. But what it does is it gets those linemen engaged. And that center now has to figure out, hey, who's coming where so I can move protection one way or the other. What it also does is make sure it keeps a running back or a tight end. Maybe they want Brenton Strange out in a route, but they've got to keep him inside now just to help block for a second before he releases, and it delays the timing. It gives the 49ers another opportunity to get home. It allows the coverage, to kind of get on these guys and close the gap. So it's going to be a strategic matchup for Robert Saleh and how he attacks with this pass rush. He's going to have a lot of things that he's going to have to attack. He's also going to have to get after Trevor Lawrence, which I want to talk about in 1 second, because that's another matchup in this game is going to be Robert Saleh versus Trevor Lawrence. It was Robert Saleh versus Kyler Murray last week, and I thought he did a really good job. But if you're going to bet with FanDuel. With FanDuel, right now, the betting lines and prop bets are through the roof. You can find some really cool player props. Last week, I was on the Christian McCaffrey over 38.5 when it came to receiving yards, and there'll be a lot of even better odds this week. Make sure you check him out. Christian McCaffrey's having a huge year, but plenty of other players as well. The money line for this week, the 49ers are minus 176. Jacksonville is at plus 148. The spread, the 49ers are favored at minus 3.5. The Jacksonville Jaguars are the underdogs at plus 3.5. And of course, the over-under this week is 46.5. 49ers have only went the over one time. That was the New Orleans game. The rest of the time, they've played under. And just for reference, last week, the 49ers scored 16 points. The Jacksonville Jaguars scored 17. Yet the over-under this week is 46.5. Something very interesting. But let's get back to Robert Saleh and what he needs to do to Trevor Lawrence. I brought up the simulated pressure, and I think that that's going to be very important because it's not just on the offensive line, but it's on Trevor Lawrence to figure out where that pressure is coming from if the 49ers are bringing a blitz or if they're backing out. Because if they are bringing a blitz, he's got to throw to where the blitz came from, where the 49ers don't have a chance to roll over and take that away right away. So you got to go to your hot read, get that ball out. But if you can consistently make it difficult for Trevor Lawrence pre-snap to post-snap, you're going to have a lot of success because when he holds onto the ball, he can get sacked. And we've seen the 49ers be able to get after him over the last couple of times they've played. Now, Trevor Lawrence, when he can get to his first read and throw, he's good. He's accurate. He'll throw into tight windows. He's got the necessary receivers to be able to catch the ball, and make some plays. They've got some guys with big play potential. But if he's a little bit off or a little bit confused, he can put the ball in harm's way. He has 4 interceptions on the season through 3 games. He had a pretty bad interception last week against the Houston Texans. So the 49ers haven't had an interception since week 11 of last year, but they have an opportunity in this game if they can get Trevor Lawrence off his game pre and post snap. And I think that will also help the pass rush. That'll generate more opportunity for the pass rush to get home if he has to hold onto the ball for a second. They also need to rotate onto these guys a little bit quickly. But it's going to be the same thing that they've been doing as far as allowing opportunities underneath. If Trevor Lawrence can consistently make those throws, then the 49ers will have to adjust. But if not, there's going to be a lot of punts. But Robert Saleh is going to have to play the game this week of getting Trevor Lawrence uncomfortable, making him move in the pocket, making this pocket collapse. And I think one of the ways is just him seeing pressure. Sometimes when he sees pressure, he takes his eyes down and not look down the field. And that's when he starts making some mistakes. So there's an opportunity for the 49ers to get after Trevor Lawrence and for him to put the ball in harm's way. And I think that's something that's going to be important this week, especially because the Jacksonville Jaguars might not have number 2 wide receiver De'Ami Brown. So last week, Brian Thomas struggled, 4 drops in the game. I don't think you can expect a duplicate performance of that. He did have the one big catch of 46 yards, but beyond that, he had 55 yards receiving. Really just one big play from Brian Thomas. De'Ami Brown has been somewhat the dynamic portion of this offense so far this season. He's been the one making plays. He's the one that Stingley Jr. was covering in the end zone for the pass interference. He's been one of the key factors for this offense. Now he's dealing with a shoulder injury. He didn't practice on Wednesday. He's one of those guys that are going to see how it progresses during the week. There's a chance De'Ami Brown's not out there. And if that's the case, they're definitely a little bit weaker at wide receiver. Still have plenty of talent, but that will definitely hurt them. And I think De'Ami Brown would have been a little bit of a tougher matchup for guys like Renardo Green and Upton Stout. So if he's not playing, that does benefit the 49ers secondary. And, the 49ers secondary it's been pretty good this year. And you just look at the numbers, and this from Coach Yak over on Twitter, who is a great follow. If you don't follow him, that's at Coach_Yak. He always puts out great content. I like to retweet a lot of it because it's good stuff. But just looking at the 49ers corners this year, Deommodore Lenoir has been targeted 10 times. He's allowed 6 catches on those 10 targets for 11 yards allowed per game. 11. That's it. The 49ers last week didn't allow any wide receiver of the Arizona Cardinals over 50 yards receiving. Just to show you how good this 49ers secondary has been, only allowing 164 yards per game through the air is really good for the 49ers. Upton Stout, the 49ers rookie nickel corner, he's been targeted 13 times, and you'd expect him to be targeted more than Deommodore Lenoir. He's allowed 8 catches. He has 2 pass breakups and only allows 22 yards allowed per game. It's not about the amount of catches, right? You see the 8 catches allowed. It's not about the amount of catches. A lot of times it's about the yards. D. Winters, for instance, last week, he gave up 4 catches for 4 yards. And the 4 yards is really the touchdown, that he gave up in the red zone, or I think it was like a yard actually on that one. And that's really not his fault. I broke it down where he moved and had to move inside. He was never going to get to Trey McBride on that play. They were hoping Sam Okawanu could disrupt Trey McBride's route and not get there. But 4 catches, 4 yards, that is phenomenal. That's what you want. So you got Upton Stout. He's only allowing 22 yards per game through the air on the 13 targets and 8 catches that he's given up. Renardo Green, and there's been a lot of criticism, and I think some of it rightly so, on Renardo Green. He's been targeted 12 times. He's gave up 6 catches. He's had 3 pass breakups, which we know is the name of his game. When he was at Florida State, he did the same thing for 39 yards allowed per game. The 49ers secondary is playing ball at corner. It is something that they've been doing well. Now, their issue is penalties. They've been flagged a combined 7 times through 3 games. They need to clean that up, and then they're going to be really good. And Renardo Green had a bad penalty, in this last one. He got pass interference on a guy that's not even catching the ball. I still don't completely understand that one, but you've got these guys that are just playing really good football. Deommodore Lenoir is a number 1 corner. He's playing like it. Upton Stout is proving to be a dog. That play made last week against Zay Jones to win the game. These guys are competing, and they've got another tough matchup this week. And, I talked about, Brian Thomas and what he brings, to the football team, and he's good. But without De'Ami Brown, there's going to be a lot of emphasis this week on Travis Hunter, of course, but the guy that really is making some plays for this football team is Parker Washington. And I think that that's going to be one of the key matchups in this game is Parker Washington and Travis Hunter against the 49ers cornerbacks, especially Upton Stout and Renardo Green. And part of the reason I say that is the cornerbacks that we've seen struggle with those guys that are really good route runners that can get in and out of their breaks quickly, that aren't the big, wide receivers, have been Upton Stout and Renardo Green. And it's still not that significant, but, Chris Olave played really well against Renardo Green in week 2. And, you see him running those routes, and he's a little bit of an issue. That is what you're going to get into with Parker Washington and Travis Hunter. And now they're going to letting Travis Hunter just focus on the F position. That's all he's going to do. They're just getting him prepared to try to make a dynamic, impact without kind of cluttering his mind with extra responsibility. So expect him to kind of have an uptick in what he's capable of doing. But Parker Washington has the ability, and he had a couple drops in this game. It wasn't a clean game for him, but he is dynamic, and Trevor Lawrence likes to look for him. And so this is a matchup that I think is going to be interesting. Upton Stout and Renardo Green, how are they going to be able to handle these smaller guys? I mean, you necessarily want to say, hey, especially with Travis Hunter, get physical. But he's pretty good with his releases. He's going to probably play off ball some of the time, and so that's going to give him a little bit of separation. You can't come up and jam him, but the 49ers cornerbacks are going to have to do good. Also, Upton Stout has to make sure that he's willing to sag his coverage a little bit. Last week, he was a little bit more tuned in to where Trey McBride was, and sometimes I was holding him a little bit too close, and he wasn't getting enough of a drop, and that was allowing Kyler Murray to go over the top to Marvin Harrison on those throws. That was on Upton Stout. He's got to sag it. It's a weakness in the defense. That's a weakness in the zone from what they were running, and they were trying to hit it. But if he would have sagged a little bit more, he would have done one or two things. Number one, he would have made Kyler Murray think twice about throwing it. Number two, he might have been able to get there and make a play. So that's something with him. He also had one breakdown in the red zone where everyone else, if you remember the play, Trey Benson drops the ball out in the flat. Everyone else is playing zone coverage. Upton Stout was playing man and following Marvin Harrison Jr. across the field, and it was almost a big play. Luckily, Trey Benson dropped it. So some mistakes still coming from Upton Stout, but he also has good plays too, and that's what you expect, right? What you're hoping is you don't make those mistakes anymore. It gets a little bit better. And he did get a little bit better in the game, even with the sagging, right? It was something he did in his coverage. Got a little bit of a deeper drop, and I thought he did a great job. With Renardo Green, it's just don't get complacent. Sometimes you feel like he's just like, they're not throwing on me. They're not throwing on me. I'm completely locked in. And all of a sudden he kind of, I don't know if he falls asleep or what it is. They kind of lull him to sleep, but then, they take a shot down the field and have a chance to get him. But I think that all three corners are good. But that matchup with Parker Washington, who's good at getting out of his breaks, and Travis Hunter got some ability. And right now Hunter hasn't got going, but he showed a couple flashes last week that I think is going to get in, get everyone's attention. If you need attention getting people to hire, try ZipRecruiter. Waiting for the right candidates to apply, sorting through resumes, finding candidates, but they're not actively looking for jobs. Well, the future of hiring looks much brighter because ZipRecruiter's latest tools and features help speed up finding the right people for your roles. You have valuable time. And now you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. Over 320,000 new resumes are added to ZipRecruiter monthly, which means you can reach more potential hires and fill roles sooner. No wonder ZipRecruiter is the #1 rated hiring site based on G2 at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. Use ZipRecruiter and save time hiring. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get quality candidate within the first day. And if you go to ZipRecruiter.com/audio right now, you can try it for free. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And I want to get to the next one because the 49ers, it feels like every single week, go against a really good tight end. And it's not going to change this week. But, in week 1, they were going against some young guys, some guys that were stepping up, that were making some plays for Seattle. Then in week 2, it was Jawan Johnson. And then in week 3, it was Trey McBride. Now they've got Brenton Strange. And Brenton Strange is very athletic. He's very talented. He's strong. There was a couple of times in this game where he made a catch and it looked like he should have been down and he kept breaking tackles or moving the pile. So 49ers are going to have to be very dedicated to their tackling. Guys like Upton Stout, Marquis Siegel, who have been very effective tackling, they're going to have to continue to be effective at tackling. But it's not just Brenton Strange, but Travis Etienne against the 49ers linebackers, Fred Warner and D. Winters. And Fred Warner and D. Winters are the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. It's not close. This is not even an argument. These dudes are superb. They're over 90 every week in their grade. They're phenomenal. This matchup right here is going to be fun because you have the size of Brenton Strange that can provide some real issues, for a guy like D. Winters. But D. Winters is more athletic. He's faster. He could get right on top of you. So he's got that going for him. Fred's got the necessary size to stay with him. Then you've got Travis Etienne that can catch the ball in the backfield and can basically be, not Christian McCaffrey as far as what Christian McCaffrey does, but he's got some of the skills. He could play slot receiver in some systems. Travis Etienne has that ability. So you're going to have this key matchup. And it's not just going to be the linebackers. We know it's going to be Marquis Siegel sometimes. It's going to be Jason Pennick. Those guys are going to be expected, to cover these guys as well. But there's going to be an emphasis, especially in the red zone, for Fred Warner and D. Winters to shut down Brenton Strange and Travis Etienne in the passing game. And so I think that this is one of those things where you're fully engaged as 49ers linebackers in stopping that run, especially when you've got a 7-man box. But you also have to be engaged in locating Brenton Strange and Travis Etienne, whether you're in zone coverage or man coverage. And so I think this is going to be a test for the 49ers. I think they're up to the challenge. I think they match up well against the Jacksonville Jaguars, tight ends, and running backs. But this is normally a position the Jaguars would take advantage of. And Liam Cohn knows this 49ers team very well. He talked very eloquently about Fred Warner and what he does. And so he understands the defense. He used to coach with the Rams, so he's got a good understanding of what the 49ers want to do defensively. He's got a holistic view on it. But these two guys being able to neutralize tight ends, slow them down, not stop them, but neutralize, slow them down, and then stopping Travis Etienne from being effective in the passing game is going to limit what Trevor Lawrence can do as far as creating first down. So I think this is going to be another key one to watch. Every week we talk about the 49ers linebackers against the opposing team's tight ends and running backs, because just like when you look at the offense, the 49ers find matchups for Christian McCaffrey that they can win on. And when you have a guy like Travis Etienne, that's what you're trying to do. Or when you have a tight end like Brenton Strange going against safeties and linebackers, normally it's advantage tight end. But when you have linebackers that can cover the way the 49ers linebackers can, it somewhat neutralizes that advantage. It makes it a little bit more difficult for offenses. So that's what teams are dealing with right now, right? I mean, if you just go back, and no one wants to think about that Super Bowl, but part of the reason that Patrick Mahomes was so elated that Dre Greenlaw went down and was out is because when the 49ers have a really good will linebacker, it neutralizes the tight end to a point. Travis Kelce was doing nothing in that game. That's what D. Winters is doing to people. Trey McBride's having plays, right? Some of the tight ends are making some catches here and there, but it's a lot more difficult, and it's nothing over the top. So I'm really excited about this matchup for the 49ers. See if they can go 4-0, and if this defense can continue the trend of playing lockdown defense. 13 points in week 1, 21 points in week 2. That's the anomaly. And then week 3, they gave up another 13 points. They've been very effective. Jacksonville's defense is very good too. I'm looking forward to talking about the 49ers offensive key matchups against them. That'll be coming out tomorrow. But thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. This episode was brought to you by FanDuel. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.